Democracy in the United States is dying. Trump is known to admire dictators and is aggressively trying to turn the U.S. into a failed democracy, just like they did in their countries. This video series shares 40 examples of how the United States in the early 21st century is looking like Germany in the early 20th century in some concerning ways. Trump appears to be copying Hitler's playbook, and MAGA is concerningly similar to the early days of the Nazi Party. The first video in this series sets out some important context. The qualifiers it includes, shown here, apply to all of the videos in the series. And now, Part 7. A comparison of how each leader commits greater and longer-term harm. Number 35. Both leaders and parties are fascist. MAGA and the Nazis before them are fascist movements. This is not meant as an insult or an empty political accusation. It's literally true based on what the term means. Merriam-Webster defines fascism as a populist political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. The term fascist comes from Italian and was used historically to refer to various groups. But the success of Mussolini's National Fascist Party resulted in the word fascist being forever associated with ideals of authoritarianism, nationalism, expansionism, racism, and xenophobia. Mussolini's party was the template on which Hitler built the Nazi Party. And Mussolini and Hitler seem to be the template on which Trump has built his regime. I don't think there's much debate about Hitler and the Nazis being fascist, so I'll not belabor the point here. MAGA and Trump also check all of these boxes and are proud of it. So, by definition of the term, Trump and his supporters are fascists. They don't like to be called fascists. I mean, who would? But that is what MAGA supporters are. Number 36. Both leaders and parties are increasingly racist and xenophobic. Everyone knows that Hitler and the Nazis were racist and xenophobic. There isn't much that needs to be explained about that. But one of the concepts of the Nazis and its environment was the concept of race shame or blood shame. This was the disdain shown for people who were pure Germans married to non-pure spouses. But exactly what constituted a pure German or a pure Jew, for example, was very much debated. There were laws put in place later, and they became stricter over time. In practice, it often became a matter of what could be shown as proof or disproof of German or Jewish heritage, either by the accusers or the accused. Trump has said similar comments about foreigners poisoning the blood of the United States and has referred to foreigners as vermin. Trump and his goons like to target immigrants, completely ignoring that their families were immigrants themselves. His chief policy ghoul, Stephen Miller, has demanded even more deportations as time has gone on. How very Nazi of him. This is especially ironic considering Stephen Miller is Jewish, and his family came to the U.S. as immigrants as things turned bad in Europe barely a century ago. Number 37. Both leaders use the legal system to punish their personal enemies, or the scapegoated enemies of their movement. Hitler and his leadership only used the legal system as a weapon to punish or control others. He regularly passed laws that restricted the rights of the Jews living in Germany and restricted the rights of the German citizens themselves. Hitler forced businesses to go along with firing Jews. He awarded or denied government contracts according to which businesses supported his agenda. Heinrich Himmler, Joseph Goebbels, Hermann Göring, and many others followed suit in lawless behavior that violated the rights of German residents and even German citizens. Trump and his leadership only use the legal system as a weapon to control others. He signs executive orders regularly that restrict the rights of U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike. Trump forces businesses to go along with his agenda. He awards or denies government contracts according to which businesses supported his agenda. Pam Bondi, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, and many others follow suit in lawless behavior that violates the rights of U.S. residents and even U.S. citizens. Number 38. Both leaders and parties saw the disadvantaged, elderly, and disabled as not worthy of dignity or life. In Germany, social programs started by the liberal Weimar Republic were kept around under the Nazis, but they were steered towards those deemed racially worthy of receiving the support. Their idea of Aryans specifically. Non-Aryans, including Jewish and any other groups deemed to be not true Germans, were not eligible for social programs. In the United States, it's a similar story. MAGA refers to people using social support as parasites. This is ironic, considering that federal taxes from blue states fund much of the red states' social support. And it's further ironic that the government gives huge handouts of tax money to billionaires and big corporations, and MAGA thinks that's fine. But giving a single mother SNAP food assistance or providing low-income children with a summer lunch program, that's communism, apparently. The Nazis went further and exterminated those they considered to be useless eaters. Similarly, when MAGA politicians are told that people will literally die as a result of the cuts to Medicaid and food programs in the big, beautiful bill that they're pushed through, their answer is a callous, well, everybody dies. MAGA, just like the Nazis, only see social welfare programs as valid for those who deserve it, in their corrupt opinion. Number 39. Both movements drove away talented scientists and researchers that didn't support them or were afraid for their safety and left to do their groundbreaking work for the benefit of other countries. Hitler's policies began driving away skilled researchers as conditions deteriorated in Germany. Some of the most famous scientists of all time came out of Germany during that period, or immediately afterward. These included Albert Einstein, one of the fathers of modern physics, and Wernher von Braun, the father of modern rocketry, as well as over 1,600 other leading scientists and technologists. The U.S. benefited from many of them. Trump's policies are driving away the most skilled researchers as conditions deteriorate in the United States. Canada, the countries of the European Union, and other countries have seen the opportunity to welcome these leading thinkers who don't want to remain in an increasingly authoritarian country. That's going to negatively impact its global position as a leading technology and medical innovator for years. One example is the clean energy that China is heavily investing in that the U.S. under Trump has abandoned. This is yet another area where the U.S. is falling behind other leading countries of the world. Number 40. Both leaders justified harmful short-term decisions as being necessary and promised greater long-term gain. Midway through World War II, the Nazis' propaganda shifted from being about claiming the rightful place in the world to being about how the war was forced on Germany, which had no choice but to defend its sovereignty and independence. Hitler called on the German people to be tough and willing to accept a short-term amount of pain for a supposed greater benefit. Trump has tried to convince the US people that his trade wars and the fallout that they've brought weren't his fault, that they were forced on the US because it was being taken advantage of by other countries. He and his supporters seem to have no idea what a trade deficit actually means, and so America supposedly has no choice but to fight for greater respect in the world. Trump has called on Americans to be tough and willing to accept a short-term amount of pain for a supposed larger benefit. In both of these cases, the greater benefit never comes. This video discussed similarities between the Nazis and MAGA and how each leader commits greater and longer-term harm. In the next video, we'll look at conclusions we can draw from this video series. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to sharpen the way you might think.